Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the TAC meeting today. Hope everybody had a great weekend. So first thing on the agenda, the approval of the TAC agenda for today. Would entertain a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve today's agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve today's agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, thank you. Next item is the approval of the TAC meeting minutes from September 25th of this year. Make a motion we approve today's minutes from September 25th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from September 25th. Any discussion or corrections? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, thank you. Next, we have the director's report. Chad?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the Technical Advisory Committee. We have a few items to report to you. The first one is the call for projects for long-range transportation plan and TIP. This cycle, we are combining both MTP and TIP, although MTP is every 5 years, and then TIP is every 2-year update. The TIP is due in fall of 2024. For the adoption, and the long-range transportation plan is due for adoption in May 2025. So it helps the project selection committee to prioritize the projects and at the same time, and it works very well having both call for projects at this time. So it, your packet indicates from September till January 5, 2024. And then obviously long-range transportation plan, these call for projects happen once in 5 years. All jurisdictions staff coordinates and ensures that the priorities of the jurisdictions are recorded by staff at WAMPO. Also would like to share with you that November 8 at 2 p.m. Staff had set aside a time for helping jurisdictions on submitting the call for projects or filling the forms or whatever the information is needed. That time is set aside and it is on the screen as well. There is a Zoom link to register, and the staff will ensure that there is enough assistance for jurisdictions as well. And then, all this information was shared before. Nick had sent an email before, and it's all available in here as well. So that's the first item. And second item is we have the TIP project status update on pages 11 to 12 on the packets. Then the next item we have is MTP 2050 update. The overall progress on MTP 2050 update is we have completed first round of public engagement. And then we are now at the second round of public engagement, and staff is looking to share. One of the things we are making progress is on scenarios development for the long-range transportation plan. Staff is working to put together these scenarios for the PAC or the Planning Advisory Committee. These scenarios are, for example, land use development, density of land use development, or high growth scenario, active transportation and transit development scenarios. So these are some of the examples that staff has developed scenarios, and they will be sharing these with Planning Advisory Committee, and then that will be reported back to you in the next meetings as well. So that's the status on the progress of MTP 2050. In addition to that, there are several studies that is happening. For example, travel demand modeling, updates are happening, congestion management process is happening. All those become part of the long-range transportation plan. And then today, Peter and myself have few presentations on economic development, demographic and socioeconomic data development as well. All those data also become part of the long-range transportation plan process. And we'll keep you in the loop as this long-range transportation plan takes shape and progresses forward. The next item is automatic bike pit counters. Dora is not in today, so I'm filling in for her. These are some of the things that staff coordinated with jurisdictions to purchase. So we are in the process of developing RFP and purchasing. So we're working on that. And by next meeting, we should have a report to you when the RFP would be released. The next item we have is Kansas Mobility Week. And let me pause here before Jessica Warren presents. Can I clarify any of the items before for you? Okay, with that, with your permission, Mr. Chair, Jessica Warren is here to present on Kansas Mobility Week.
All right, sounds great. Thanks.
Hello, thank you. Jessica Warren, Mobility Manager. So I'm here to talk to you about the third annual Kansas Mobility Week. So Kansas Mobility Week is a celebration of all the different modes in which Kansans use to get around and to interact with their communities and each other. So it is this year, it's November 5th through 11th. And so on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about what Kansas Mobility Week looks like. So the way that we do this celebration is through events across the state. And we intentionally planned Mobility Week to encompass Election Day. And it usually encompasses Veterans Day. It does this year, but there are some years where it might not. So we gather all of these different events that are happening across the states and pull them together. So last year in Kansas Mobility Week was our second annual. We had 55 events across 37 counties, and then we had one statewide event. It's a selfie event where when someone is doing the whatever it is, if they're taking a free ride to the polls or whatever that looks like, then they take a selfie. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. We can move to that. So types of events. So like I said, there's the selfie challenge. There's a picture there of what that could look like. So last year, some of the events that we had were free rides for the week, free rides for Election Day, free rides for Veterans Day. There was at least one city council that gave recognition to their drivers in a public forum. There are transportation awareness displays. That one's been a big favorite at like senior centers, libraries, community centers, medical centers, gathering places. Some organizations that have like bikes that you rent, they gave free bike rides for that week. And then there have also been events where there have been like passenger appreciation days with prizes or little gift bags. Next slide. So in order to get involved, you can go to kansasrides.org. And that is either if you have an event that you'd like to submit, you can do it that way. Or if you want to see the events in your community, you can go there. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Jessica Warren is our mobility director at region. I think next couple of items have staff updates. We would like to introduce our new staff who are here today at the TAC meeting. We have Danny Lasher, who is a public outreach planner, and Marky Jonas, administrative assistant. Could you please say a few words and introduce yourself, please? Thank you, Danny and Marky.
Hi, I'm Danny Lasher. I think I was here last time, but it was my very first day. So now I'm here again. I'm really glad to be here and to get acquainted here at WAMPO. So
Thank you, Danny.
Hi, I'm Marky Jonas. Like Chad mentioned, I'm the new administrative assistant. Yeah, I'm also super excited to be here and to get to know how all of transportation planning works and everything. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Marky. Welcome, Danny, Marky. I think Danny will be helping us more in coordination with jurisdictions as well as KDOT and planning processes, public outreach and project management, those types of tasks. Then last item we have is safe routes to school planning. This item, due to advice from our TPB chair, we are still exploring to see how we can include all schools in the region instead of few schools that were taught before. We were trying to find how can we best find additional funds to conduct a study that can encompass as many school districts and as many more schools that we can have as possible. And while we are doing that homework, we would be back again reporting to you what we find in coordination with KDOT staff, as well as internal discussions with some of the jurisdictions where the school routes and school improvements are critical. So we'll have some of those meetings, and then we'll report back how we are proceeding with the Safe Routes to School plan, as comprehensive as possible that we can do. So that's that item. And today on the agenda, we have Peter and staff reporting to you on the comprehensive safety action plan. And then we have a couple of action items on UPWP as well as urban area boundary for you. With that, Mr. Chair, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chad, and welcome again, Danny and Marky, right? Okay, welcome. All right, next we have public comments. So this is the time for open forum for the public to provide comments about specific items on this month's agenda or any other issue related to WAMPO's policies, programs, or documents. Is there anybody like to speak? All right, thank you.
Of course, I'm Alan Kaler, and I'm here on behalf of Bike Walk Wichita. I want to comment on, just want to emphasize my comments on the comprehensive safety action plan, which is the next agenda item. I submitted written comments on it, and like I said, just want to emphasize those. Several months ago, I was at a conference that I think KDOT put on, and several of the WAMPO staff members were there too. And we were standing around talking about what happened at the conference, and said they had lots of good ideas and everything. And Chad said, yeah, but Alan's going to ask, what are we going to do? And that's really the point of my my written comment and my comments today is this is a great plan, but what are we actually going to do on it? The staff has done a fantastic job setting out actions that can be taken to improve the safety on projects. They've done a great job of laying out the steps to be done and so forth. But the stated plan doesn't quite then reach the ultimate conclusion of saying what it is you're going to do. Which the main thing that WAMPO does is select projects for funding. That's where the majority of its funding goes. That's where the majority of the discussion takes place. And in the project, it doesn't quite say that safety is going to be the priority, the one in the project selection process. I submitted the written comments. In response, a policy statement was added at the beginning of the comprehensive safety action plan, again emphasizing that safety is a high priority of the plan and of the region. But the real point is, ideally, I think the action plan itself ought to say that safety will be given as high a priority as anything else in deciding what projects are selected. But more importantly, frankly, is not what it says in the plan, but what is actually done in the project selection committee. And I just want to emphasize to all of you the importance of prioritizing the safety in the selection of the projects and in the funding going forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I have a quick question, if you don't mind, just so I understand, and
Sure.
and I'm mostly tagging off something Alan's. Is there dedicated funding going forward? I think one of the things is this safety plan has to be in place before we could apply for implementation funds for the Safe Streets for All, right? I mean, that was one of the criteria I know we talked about before. Is there, and I'm just asking based on what I heard Alan say, is there funding within WAMPO set aside? Because he asked about project selection, but if there's no funding, there's no projects to select.
It's true. Safe streets for grant is the intent for this plan to develop. And once that and identifying projects is also part of that. Yes, Gary.
But does that mean, and maybe this isn't the place for it, and we can talk about it later, does that mean that? I mean, usually I think in a case like this, it would be up to individual communities or jurisdictions to apply for that funding. Is WAMPO gonna apply for the funds for the Safe Streets for All program?
I think in conjunction with discussions with all jurisdictions, we'll put together a grant application next as soon as the NOFO is released, notice of funding opportunity is released, we'll apply for that grant together. I think WAMPO will submit the plan as well. Last time, that's what we did for the demonstration grant of the Safe Streets for All demonstration grant. We did that last time in conjunction with jurisdictions. I think we can do that, Gary, next time too.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And also we have a presentation later on. We can get more clarity.
All right, thank you. Are there any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the action item. We have 3 action items today. The first one is the comprehensive safety action plan approval. Peter.
Good morning. So as Alan has kind of already introduced the subject, we have completed our public comment period on the comprehensive safety action plan. That was from September 19th and closed on October 19th. During that time, we received 3 public comments and we reviewed them, and they will also be included as an appendix on the document itself. We added a policy statement. So as the result of previous public engagement, committee discussion, it was recommended that the public's clear preference for safety be reflected in a new policy statement at the beginning of the document. It does explicitly outline our commitment to safety, but related to public commentary, we further revised that policy statement at the beginning to reflect how WAMPO incorporates safety as a specific scoring metric for the project selection process. So the scorecards we do create for the PSC to help inform their decisions does include a metric for safety on it. And with that, staff recommends that the TAC committee recommend that the TPP approve the safety action plan. Your options here, we recommend that you can recommend the TPP approve this CSAP or comprehensive safety action plan and safety policy statement as presented. Recommend the TPP not approve, or recommend approval with any specific changes that you guys see fit.
All right, thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the safety action plan as presented?
One more question, sorry. Did we, and I apologize because we probably did and I missed it because I haven't been able to be at every meeting. Did we see highlights of this plan before? I mean, were they discussed with the TAC?
We've had it as an agenda item on other meetings. I don't know how in depth we went on all of the things within the CSAP plan.
And that's fine. I guess I was trying to think about the expectations and maybe going forward. Is that, and if it is what it is, does that mean each member was kind of up to them just to review the plan, or? And if so, okay, I'll look at it later. That's fine.
So the CSAP, there's a lot of components to it. The document that's on our website, it's 113 pages. Specifically, I think the most intriguing part for our jurisdictions would be it provides a toolkit of items that you can act upon, like specific recommendations, such as the formation of like a fatal crash committee that reviews fatal crashes, things like that. There's that toolkit section. There's quite a bit more in it than that, but that's where I would point a lot of people to go look, especially if you're looking for specific actions that you could do or create now.
And I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to slow this down or asking you to do anything different. Again, if it was presented before and I missed it, then I'll just say this last thing and leave it alone. But I would hope on these plans that we could at least see the highlights of the plan, right, through this body. That sounds like that's quite the plan for us to approve today. Hopefully other people here saw it. I'm assuming they did.
If you like, we can schedule a presentation for, let me see, this is today's October, right? Trying to think whether November, I think we can do that in November and then have an approval then, and then have December TPB approval if you like that.
Well,
Gary,
I
we can
don't
do-
want to speak for anybody else here. I'll, again, unless if nobody else has an interest of that, we can just move on. It's fine. I know there was a committee that helped put this together, right? So that helps. I mean, there are people here that were involved, so I was just curious.
Mr. Chair, this is Allison Smith with KDOT. If there has not been a thorough presentation of this, I recommend that we move it to November because I myself do not feel comfortable voting on this until I see the highlights, the recommendations, some sort of put together presentation. I think that would benefit everybody. Again, I do hate to slow things down, but I don't feel comfortable voting for this until we actually see a presentation.
I agree totally, Allison, and I agree. So let us have presentation in November and then action by TPB on December 1st meeting. Yes.
Yeah, that's something that's very standard with MPOs. If you're asking for our vote, we need to see the components of the plan to know what we're actually voting on. So if you could do that, that would be great.
But thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting?
I would move. Oh, go ahead.
All right, so I'll take one of you as a motion and one of you as a second.
Sure.
Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor of tabling this till the next meeting? All opposed? All right, thank you. All right, next we have urban area boundary. Peter?
Okay, so urban area boundaries, some background. So every MPO's Metropolitan Planning Area, their MPA, must contain an urban area boundary distinguishing urban areas from rural areas. So essentially, I'm going to be talking about a boundary that kind of surrounds Wichita and some of the suburbs around it. What's important about this is our most flexible form of suballocated funding, our surface transportation block grant funds, can be used on urban minor collectors within the urban area boundary, but not on rural minor collectors outside the urban area boundary. In addition, non-suballocated transportation alternative funds from KDOT can be used outside of our urban area boundary, whereas suballocated transportation alternative funds can be used in any part of our metropolitan planning area. So those are kind of the two caveats that make this important. In addition, the UAB must, or the urban area boundary must fully contain the census urban area boundary. So every 10 years, we do the decennial census. The Census Bureau calculates which of those census blocks are urbanized, and I forget the exact metrics, but it's typically population density, I think was one of the big ones. And they come up with a kind of a prototype of a urban area boundary just based on that information. Once that's completed, that is sent back to the MPO and us to review, and with KDOT make changes as we see appropriate based on federal guidelines. So there can be changes in between. Sometimes the urban areas abound, or it can be changed between the censuses, but our current urban area boundary was adopted following the 2010 census, and they updated in 2015. So the 2020 census urban area, so I've been talking about three boundaries. I know it's getting a little confusing that way, is entirely within the WAMPO planning area, meaning our MPA doesn't need to be changed to get out any urbanized areas that started to stick outside WAMPO. But it does extend beyond where the old urban area boundary was in a few locations, meaning that we couldn't leave it the same. So WAMPO staff have drafted a proposed new UAB, or urban area boundary, with feedback from KDOT staff and TAC and TPP from the past couple meetings here. And we have an updated map that Nick will show you here as he gives you kind of the more finer details on this.
Thank you, Peter. Now, most of this is information that we presented last month, but for those who weren't here, just to recap a few things. The way we developed our proposed new urban area boundary for the region was first to overlay the current urban area boundary with the new census urban area for Wichita in order to make sure to get in all of the area that was previously in the UAB and all the areas that are absolutely required to be added to it because they're in the new census urban area, but were not contained in the old boundary. Next, we observe the federal guidance that UABs should contain entire municipalities. So we overlaid the city limits of those cities that were either entirely or partially within either the current UAB or the census urban area, with two exceptions of remote enclaves, one, a tiny piece of the city of Wichita in far southwestern Sedgwick County, and an enclave of Mulvane around the Kansas Star Casino that are far removed from the rest of the city or the rest of the urban area boundary or urbanized area. And then we filled in any holes in the resulting shape by reverse enclaves, so we don't have a place that is non-urban, so completely surrounded by urban areas. And then any remaining non-contiguous areas from the remaining shape we connected because UABs are required to be one contiguous shape. And UABs are also supposed to follow physical features that can be followed on the ground in the field, like roads, railroad tracks, waterways, etc. And so in some locations, we extended the border outwards more in order to reach such features rather than just, say, cutting diagonally across an agricultural field or something like that. And when doing this, we established the rule that is in our meets and bounds description associated with it, that where the UAB follows a roadway, that roadway is considered inside the UAB. Now, this is the same rule that was used when the WAMPO overall planning area border was established. So that is consistent in that manner. And then finally, we confirmed that the UAB, as required, is entirely within the metropolitan planning area of WAMPO overall. And then, now, as you may recall, at the last meeting of this, actually you would not, unless you're, anyway, following the last meeting of the TAC, we received a request from Valley Center staff to extend the border outwards in one location for land that they intended to annex in the near future. And then at the most recent TPB meeting, we received requests, one from the city of Hayesville to include a section of land that was not previously included, and requests from Butler County and Rose Hill to make a much larger addition to the area of the UAB to include the city of Rose Hill and the land in between it and Derby that was established as being in line for a dramatic increase in development. And here is the resulting shape after those additions. As you can see, it is noticeably different from what you may have seen last time. And as this is, of course, is also in your packets and available from the provided URL, both in the packet and on the screen, in case you want to see it more close up. Now you can see, let's see here. So here's the part around Valley Center that is expected to be annexed soon, that was added after the TAC meeting. The section of land outside of Hayesville that was added is down here. And of course, extended this outward to include all of Rose Hill. The next steps, today we are going to ask the TAC whether or not to recommend to the TPB to approve this new UAB. And again, as a reminder that if no action is taken, that if WAMPO and KDOT do not agree on a new UAB, the default is that it will become the same as a census urban area. And then in November, the TPB will vote on whether or not to approve the proposed UAB or to make changes to it. And then the deadline that KDOT gave MPOs to submit UABs to them for consideration was December 1st. And then KDOT must get the final one to the FHWA by December 29th. So unless you have any questions, your options are to recommend the TPB approve the proposed UAB as presented, not approve it, or approve it with specific changes. It is the recommendation of WAMPO staff to approve it as presented. Yes, Lynn Packer.
I have a question. So the taking in the southeast quadrant between Derby and Rose Hill, is that in line with the guidelines for the urbanized area boundary? I mean, I'm familiar with the area and I'm sure someday it will develop, but it's far from developed right now.
We consulted with KDOT staff on this and they said it was acceptable.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'll make a recommendation that the TPB approve the proposed new urban area boundary as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have item C, the 2024 Unified Planning Work Program approval.
Every year, WAMPO must adopt a UPWP, which is the primary budgeting document for planning activities WAMPO will undertake in the upcoming fiscal year. Again, that's the Unified Planning Work Program. So every summer, WAMPO begins preparing next year's UPWP by considering existing activities, adding new activities based on federal requirements, budgets, and input from FHWA, FTA, KDOT, Wichita Transit, TAC, and TPB. Didn't want to forget anybody. And potential 2024 Unified Planning Work Program tasks were presented and discussed with TAC on September 25th and the TPB on October 10th. A lot of work goes into putting these UPWPs together. I'm going to let Chad kind of talk about the different items that we have for the upcoming 2024 UPWP.
Okay, thank you, Peter. As you all know, this is every year UPWP is programmed, so staff continue the efforts that plan development and the MTP long range transportation plan development, as well as TIP amendments that you see frequently. And there's also a few items that were added. For example, there was a discussion by KDOT on K-15 corridor study as an example. So staff, we identified an additional 50,000 allocated for that study. It's a partnership between county, WAMPO, and cities and KDOT. So that's one example. And the other examples are the active transportation plan is planned to conduct a study as well, region-wide. Of course, you all know that staff is working on how best to accomplish safe routes to school plan for the region. Similarly, ITS architecture, intelligent transportation system that Peter is working on to develop a plan region-wide. These are all some of those, of course, the Safe Streets for All grant application is also programmed in 2024. And many other tasks are ongoing that will be continued. For example, travel demand forecasting and congestion management plan development. So all these tasks that are planned, that are ongoing, and the new ones that are programmed in 2024 is all documented in this report. Attached to this, total budget is not too far from previous ones, 2,169,850 for the 224. And then obviously this needs 20% local match as well, and usual 20%, 80% match. And this is supported by CPG Consolidated Planning Grant that you all know. Today, this document went through coordination between staff. Ashley and I had worked with coordinating with FHWA and KDOT, and Allison had been great help in fine tuning both budget items as well as tasks. So we worked in collaboration, identifying what all our region and jurisdictions need, as well as in collaboration with KDOT. So now it is, staff is now seeking your recommendation for the TPB to approve. So that way, the tasks and works continue in 2024. As usual, every year UPWP is developed. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? If not, I would recommend approval for the TPB approve the 2024 Unified Planning Work Program as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you. All right, next we have discussion and updates. The first one, employment sectors. Peter?
So I'm here to talk to you about the different regional economic sectors that were compiled by the Greater Wichita Partnership and then the Center for Economic Development and Business Research, or CEDBR. Forgive me if I say CEDBR a few times. I know it's kind of an odd acronym, but it stands for Center for Economic Development and Business Research. They compiled a bunch of information and really examined who are the key players in these different industries. So we have advanced manufacturing, agriculture, aerospace, energy, healthcare, IT system support, transportation, and logistics. It's how the Greater Wichita Partnership kind of put our different employers or divided them into these sectors to make it a little bit easier to handle. So with all this information, they gave us over a 300-page report all in all. And so we thought it would be beneficial to our TAC and TPB members to kind of try to do a sector by sector overview of this information they provided. So advanced manufacturing are kind of our bigger employers there. We have Coleman, Hustler Turf, which is actually outside of WAMPO, but talking to the staff over at CEDBR, untangling kind of your own economic ties within your region is a little tough. And if you try to take people out, you kind of miss part of the picture. But advanced manufacturing, as defined by the Greater Wichita Partnership, encompasses a diverse range of industries, including machinery, production, metal fabrication, plastics, and composite manufacturing. And I want to emphasize the word diverse because there's a lot of things that fall under the advanced manufacturing category. Our advanced manufacturing sector has demonstrated some resilience and modest growth and remains competitive against other comparable metropolitan areas and cities. Our presentation will try to answer the following questions. Who are the key players today? Where is the industry as a whole right now? And what key factors will affect the future of the industry? So I have the top 10 major players per CEDBR here, or per the Center for Economic Development and Business Research. We have Coleman Co., of course, at the top, CNH Wichita, 600, Excel Industries, Metal Fab Inc. is what that should be. Precision Machining, Catch. You can see on here quite a few industries there, but the total list is over 200 different localities inside of Wichita that fall under this banner or inside of the WAMPO, greater WAMPO region. So I kind of made this map here that shows our larger ones. Ones with the yellow halo are those ones from the top 10 list. I tried to get as many labels on here as that I could possibly fit before that became too cluttered. But I do have all 226 of those little dots that represent the different localities for these advanced manufacturing locations. And I zoomed in first, kind of North WAMPO here. All of the ones that have labels here have greater than 30 employees in this sector. It was just kind of interesting that just in Newton, just a little further north of us, there's this kind of concentration of some of the larger ones. A lot of these different advanced manufacturer, as you kind of heard from the category labels, they have shops that are sometimes you're looking at 10 to 15 people that kind of work in these different machine shops, adhesive, things like that. So I zoomed in on the other concentrated area. Of course, that would be the downtown metro area. And you can kind of see some of our other ones here: Coleman Co., Ericssel, Great Plains Industries, all major players in this section of industry. Moving through here, our employment. So they compile, or the Center for Economic Development Business Research, they gave us information on employment from 2015 to 2021 on all of these different sectors. In this particular one, it's held pretty much the same over the past 7 years that I have here. Little dip in 2020, but a sustained recovery there. 9,347 up from 9,000 or from 9,452 in 2019. So that was good to see. They didn't have too big of a hit from the pandemic. And then they also did a comparison of total employment in that industry compared to a bunch of other industries or a bunch of other cities in here. So Wichita, you know, we're not one of the biggest employers in this industry. As you can see, you have Elkhart Goshen, which I suppose I was looking at their numbers. From pre-pandemic levels, they've almost increased about 10,000 employees from 2020 to 2021. And their advanced manufacturing industry, they make RVs, all sorts of campers, RV parts, things like that. And so they actually gained quite a few employees. I just thought that was quite fascinating. Then we have our advanced manufacturing, our median wages by year. We have from 2015 to 2021, and it looks like we're increasing, but we were talking about this from last time. We didn't include inflation on our graph. And so if you see that kind of orange yellow line there, that is inflation. I suppose it could be worse. The wages could not be keeping up with inflation, but it comes out to about the same amount of buying power that they had in 2015. And then finally, for each of these industries, the Center for Economic Development and Business Research, they did a threat analysis. They looked at the bargaining power of buyers and suppliers, and then rivalries among firms for each sector within the 7 sectors. And so for advanced manufacturing, they put a threat of new entrants was low. And it's the same reasons why you had for aerospace. So high capital requirements, you have to build a fabrication or manufacturing facility. Compliance with government regulations. Government regulations do make it harder for new players to enter. And proprietary technology. And specifically, they mentioned the Wichita-based Coleman plant has proprietary technology in designing and manufacturing outdoor equipment. The threat of substitution is low, and it's just, again, I mentioned these industries are very diverse. They tend to build very specific parts in a supply chain. So if you're farther up the chain and say aerospace manufacturing, and you're working with another advanced manufacturer to get parts from, even though we have 226 locations, the specific adhesive or metal fabrication or part that you need may only be produced by a couple manufacturers within this sector. And that same kind of thing goes with the bargaining power of buyers and suppliers. So I hope I don't say something too apocryphal to economist, but to understand the bargaining power here, you can consider going to Walmart, where you are a buyer and Walmart is the supplier. You don't have any bargaining power. You pay what the price is because there's almost an infinite number of buyers and one supplier, and that's Walmart. Same thing kind of goes here, except in the advanced manufacturing industry, there's typically a modest number of suppliers and a modest number of buyers, so they can work with each other to negotiate contracts. Be it, we'll sell you to a cheaper price if you give us so much volume, or if you lock in our price, we can do this. You can go to somewhere else, but you may only have 2 or 3 other options where you can supply or buy things from. And then finally, that same dynamic does create a high rivalry among firms, because if there is only 3 or 4 buyers or suppliers, you're competing with those other people, and you know who you're undercutting, so you're kind of in a position where you're highly competitive with one another. And then there was one note that they didn't necessarily include on the other sectors, but Sedberg put it in at the end of the report for advanced manufacturing. And that was Wichita has a rather large set of the workforce that is skilled in advanced manufacturing. Some of that's just because of the aerospace industry being here for so long, but we have a lot of machining talent within the region. And yeah, it was interesting they chose to add a paragraph that didn't follow their typical format for this industry specifically. But that would be kind of a brief overview of advanced manufacturing.
Quick comment. Thank you, Peter. Quick comment that this is part of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan development. Every 5 years, when we develop this, economic employment data and population data will be updated as part of the plan. So Peter and myself and staff were working to ensure that we share the updated data with you as well. There's lots of data, but Peter and I thought we do a series of presentations. Last time we had aerospace presentation, this time advanced manufacturing, and successive presentations will have data, maps, and the location of the employment. Just want to provide a context of why this is made, and then how this data will be updated and so on.
Thank you, Chad. And the other thing I'd like to mention, this is on the WAMPO website now. So if you go to our what we do and then hit data and reports, the first 3 items that will pop up will be different reports and summaries from the Center for Economic Development and Business Research that you can see all these. And so our next section here is going to be on the demographic and socioeconomic forecasts, which I'm actually quite excited to tell you guys about, because it's some really fascinating information about all the different municipalities in WAMPO and a lot more. So the collaboration with Sedberg produced a rich data set of demographic and socioeconomic for all 22 cities in WAMPO. And we'll take a look at how they formatted this info. Oh, sorry, Jen.
I just want to appreciate all the work that went to the for the employment sector for the advanced manufacturer. I did see the link on our page here, and I know it's well over 100. It's over 100 pages, so that's definitely a good reading. So I do appreciate it. So I just wanted to mention that before you get too far. So go and continue with the demographic and social economic forecast. Thanks.
Thank you. And in that document that you're looking at, I think it has all of them combined. On the website, it has links to the specific sectors. It makes it a lot more tenable when you're trying to parse it out. But we got that up on the website a little bit before we got the packet out, and I wanted to make sure everybody had access to all the sectors if they wanted to see it.
Thank you.
But the demographic socioeconomic. So I think when we first had Sedberg present on this, they showed us this slide. And it's great, but it's not great for this kind of PowerPoint presentation because it's kind of small and it's too big for this, or has too much all at once. So I wanted to take us kind of around this chart real quick. Sorry, Chad, did you?
I had my slides. I forgot where I kept those before this.
I do have your slides there.
Sorry.
I put them after I explained
Okay.
all the information in here. Because when you go on the site, if you do want to look at this, this is what you'll be presented with. So first, the upper center section, it has household statistics, education, age profile. That education, so this is all of WAMPO that we're looking at right now. So you can see our median household income, $65,000 with median home value of about $192,000. That education is highest level of obtained education. So if you read those numbers, they typically add up to 100%, sometimes 101%, maybe a little bit of rounding error there, but you can kind of see there. And then you have the demographic age profile. So as you can see, WAMPO stays relatively young. We don't have a giant hump in our older population, which is always good for employment and looking towards the future of having lots of younger people ready to take jobs and enter the economy. And then the bottom middle section that was in there, this does households by income. So you can see it stratifies it by which ones. And for example, you have, the largest group, it kind of puts it up there in the corner, is that $50,000 to $75,000 range. You have 20.2% of households in the WAMPO region falling in that group. The smallest group is that $200,000 plus range, which is pretty typical. But something to look at is our households that make less than $15,000 a year. That's 8.5%, which I put it in here. Comes out to, from our total amount of households, which is 214,000, is about 18,250 households would make less than $15,000 a year for that household income. I just wanted to show that because you can kind of calculate some of these statistics as you're going through this just one page from the Sedberg report. And then I wanted to talk about the tapestry segmentation, the giant colored bars on the side. So often you'll have different demographic information and they want to segment the population somehow, like 18 to 24-year-olds, 25 to 49-year-olds that make so much money, things like that. But Esri developed their own system of population segmentation, and they put it on all these cards for you to see. And they did that with WAMPO. And again, this is WAMPO's on the left there. So you can see they created their life modes, and there's 14, the number, or not number one, but the one that's up there, the affluent estates. 10% of households fall into this category. And I put that up there just so you can see the description. Stands for established, well-educated, well-traveled married couples, less than 10% of all households with 20% of household income. Homeowners, almost 90%. Mortgages, 65.2%. Married couples with family ranging from grade school to college. Expect quality, invest in time-saving services. All of these are available, and it is quite fascinating to see not only where your region falls or sometimes where you fall. I was in, I forget, the Young City Explorers, and one of those was, the characteristics was, lives in a house on the edge of town built in the 1980s. And I was like, oh, I live by McConnell. My house was built in 1981. It's just kind of fun to look at there, but more fascinating. And you can see how the whole region is actually in these segments. I circled it in red. You click on that learn more, and that'll take you to the descriptions of what these life modes say. But it's quite fascinating. And then finally, on the right side here, they further subdivide those life modes. I know I'm adding a lot here, into subcategories. So the life mode 4, family landscapes, is subdivided, I think, into 3 categories. And the number one life mode subcategory is workday drive. And it has, it describes it as successful young families in their first homes, prosperous married couple families residing in suburban or semi-rural areas with a low vacancy rate, homeowners, 79%, things like that. And then the other subcategories in there were workday drive, home improvement, and Middleburg. They all have their own descriptions. And on that same page where you click learn more, you have a PDF that explains what those are. I would suggest if you go look at this data, get a cup of coffee, maybe plan for 45 minutes as you kind of look through the different information you can find on here and the different information you can create. And I wanted to show you where it's really useful, and that was with comparison. So I picked Eastboro and WAMPO for this because you can already make some assumptions. You know, Eastboro, the value of the homes there are probably pretty high. So you're looking at people that can afford those homes. And you're probably looking at people in a time in their careers that could have actually sustained that mortgage or purchased them. So we'll see what the data shows us. So here's WAMPO and Eastboro side by side. See, the median home value is at $436,000 in Eastboro. Median household income, $143,288. And then if you look at the home value to income ratio, interestingly enough, it's just about 3 in either case. And that ratio is exactly what it says. It's the median home income divided by the median home value. I always like when you have very simple information like that where you can see how they made it. And again, you can see the different education profile. For Wichita, 34% have their highest level of education is a degree or higher. Eastboro, that's 73%. And then this is WAMPO's demographics by age. You can just see each bar kind of tells you what percentage of the population falls in that age group. This is our baseline for WAMPO, and here's Eastboro. And you can see that exact trend that we thought we might see. We have a bunch of young kids from 0 to like about 24, and then we start to really drop. And then we see that uptick in later ages. One would speculate that that is likely because that's the age group that's going to be able to move in and afford these kind of homes. And then demographics, which I thought this one made me chuckle a little bit. So we already looked at the WAMPO ones, which I have on the right side of the screen over there. And I have the Eastboro ones. They all flow, 100% of all the 299 households in Eastboro fall into affluent estates, into that life mode. And the specific subcategory, it was top tier. And again, you can look at that PDF online that'll tell you more about what that means. And so I just want to show you just how you can look at this and get a baseline and really glean information from these reports, because we have them for all of the municipalities in WAMPO. Rose Hill, Hayesville, Derby. Oh, sorry, Chad, it's getting carried away. I'll let you.
No, you're good, Peter. Please complete your thought.
Just saying, you can go online. We have these in a link in our reports and data, and you can find your city, go look and just see how you do and how you compare to other municipalities in WAMPO. That was, yeah.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate Peter diving into the data. There's so much data, and Peter is right. Coffee and 45 minutes is the right way to dive into this. One thing I want to share with you is the context, why this all started and how the staff is making efforts. I just want to give a context. Before this project started as economic development for the region, we wanted to be consistent with the greater regional partnership, Wichita partnership as well. That's why the sectors were discussed by Peter. And also, we wanted to have, as we develop the long-range transportation plan, the best practice is to develop the measures, like system measures. How do we measure the trends over a decade or every 5 years? Like, for instance, this is a great example. These indicators of demographic and socioeconomic indicators, how do they change? And how do we monitor was the intent of this project? And then staff is also getting trained through this study. For example, there are households in WAMPO area on the screen, and that compares to Wichita as an example. Total number of households in WAMPO area is 215,000 approximately. And then Wichita area alone has 160,000 is an example, how we monitor. The other example is, like, as Peter mentioned, the median income divide the ratio of median income and the cost of the house. Those types of measures, how are they changing over a period of time? and also the median income plus the educational levels. So the best practice of developing a transportation plan is how do we measure this region-wide or geography? And not only that, how we monitor this over decades, but also how do we compare from one city to the other? Like, for example, the next slide. Next slide has Derby and Andover as an example. The median income in Andover is 88,000, and Derby, the median income is 81,000. The median house value, and the ratio of the income and the house cost also. Again, the education levels of accomplishments, those as well. So there's tons of data, as Peter mentioned. So we hope to, that's why Peter thought we share this as a series of presentations. And fortunately, he made efforts to put all this on the website before this meeting. And then we continue to make the effort of how robust data can be for our region so that, jurisdictions can utilize these for various decision-making processes. There are, data is data, but hopefully this helps. So just want to provide a context that this is part of the long-range transportation plan development and how we measure indicators for the region. So thank you, Peter.
And then just to finish up, in addition to that kind of large place card in there, there's population information, including forecasts for, well, it's a forecast for 2022 because we don't have ACS and 2020, like decennial census data. It sounds a little strange to call 2022 a forecast, but we have that for 2022 and 2027 for population, household income, and diversity. And then I just put the link down there. But yeah, any questions for me?
All right, thank you. I did open the link, and it's another very lengthy document, like 300 and some pages for the one I saw. So definitely more than just one cup of coffee in 45 minutes. So it's
I'm glad that was the same issue we had before, where we're like, we want to make sure it's available to everybody. So all the cities are in there as one. On the website, it has a picture and a icon for you to click, and it'll take you to the 6-page report there is for each city. It's much, much better than a long document.
all right. Thank you again. All right, next we have Vision Zero. Maria.
Maria, are you online, Maria? Let me check.
All right. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm working off a couple screens. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me here today. Again, my name is Maria Cantrell. I am one of the senior safety engineers with Burgess and Nyepel, and we worked on the comprehensive safety action plan you talked a little about earlier today. And then for the presentation today, I was asked to speak to you about Vision Zero. So I've just been with Burgess and Nyepel for a few months. Prior to that, my most recent role was with the city of Columbus. I was the Vision Zero coordinator there for 4 years. So I started it from the beginning, from infancy, and I had, we worked on the data together, put an action plan together for the city of Columbus, worked on all of our strategies for that plan for a couple of years, and then wrote a second installment of that action plan. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about what it means to do Vision Zero at a city. So with the next slide, what is Vision Zero? It's basically not just a slogan, not just a tagline. It's fundamentally a change in how we approach traffic safety. Here are a couple crashes from the Wichita area pictured here. We want to eliminate these outcomes. So next slide, this graph on the next slide. Yeah, this graph really shows you the urgency of why we need a Vision Zero. Over the past 10 years of data that we looked at, your serious injury crashes have doubled in the region. Fatal crashes are up 50%. This is more than 500 parents, children, friends, or colleagues that didn't make it home. The status quo for the approach to traffic safety, it's just nationally, it's not working. It's not working on a regional level. It's not working on a national level. We just need to change how we approach traffic safety. And that's what we're trying to do with Vision Zero. Next slide shows you another data trend happening in your area. Compared to a motorist or someone riding around in a vehicle, a bicyclist is 5 times more likely to be killed or seriously injured, and a pedestrian is 10 times more likely to be seriously injured or killed when involved in a traffic crash. So part of Vision Zero is we're looking at not just people in cars, but certainly also looking to consider vulnerable road users. So next slide, this tends to get quite a bit more into a deeper explanation of that shift in that mindset and traffic safety. Certainly we, as practitioners, as leaders in our communities, we've always cared about traffic safety, but the shift in mindset is that these outcomes truly, they're not inevitable. They are preventable, and trying to really think about that and not just going, yeah, these bad crashes happen, and really going, no, we can make a change and we can ensure different outcomes. And how do we do that? We don't expect people to behave perfectly. We really need to have a holistic approach at our traffic system that allows for human error and has some forgiveness in the system. Also important to note that this is not just a crash elimination strategy. It's really about preventing those worst crashes, those fatal and serious injury crashes, not focusing on every ding and dent, not every little rear end. Those are bad days, but we want to focus on these life-altering crashes. And then the next bullet point down there showing that the responsibility isn't on the individual user. Here, we've built this, go use it, good luck. It's really thinking about all of our influences on the transportation system and, recognizing that it is not only expensive transportation projects that can make a change, but we can tweak signal timings, we can improve pavement markings and implement new policies, or look at, maybe there's some opportunities in our design standards or laws that could improve traffic safety. And then again, certainly paramount is that human life is prioritized within all aspects of the transportation system, right? So a lot of times as engineers, we focus on level of service a lot, and that we still care about that. But I try to encourage everyone to think about a level of safety when we're looking at our transportation system. So kind of go into the next slide. This change in mindset, it really is for everyone, as far as practitioners, for our leadership, politicians, and every user of our system, right? Changing that, the way we think, our attitudes and our behaviors and how we approach traffic safety, gets us different results than what we've been trending for the last 10 plus years and better performance. So with the next slide, so what does this mean for Vision Zero? How do we get to zero? Well, we need, one thing I very much recognize at the City of Columbus is you need strong leadership within each agency that's going to pursue Vision Zero. You need a champion, someone to lead it, someone that's going to really carry the torch for that. But, whether, it's someone like a Vision Zero coordinator like I was, but beyond that, you're going to have the political will to do some of these things. You need your mayor and or city council, as well as transportation professionals. A multi-agency collaboration is what it takes to do Vision Zero. So, you want police engaged, fire, your health departments, educators, influencers, all of these people coming together to work on a plan of strategies and intend to be accountable for them. So you want to have that commitment from that, and then the leadership, if you have that collaboration, putting a resolution or a similar public commitment forward to having a Vision Zero plan that you're going to start pursuing. Next slide, following up on how to get to zero. Part of Vision Zero is collecting and analyzing and understanding data trends. And we did quite a bit of this with the comprehensive safety action plan, looking at where are there challenges with equity and how do those layers come into play for that data information, what trends are happening, you know, what might be disproportionate in certain areas for that equity factor, and kind of next slide talking more about that, you know, where are there households with less vehicles, where are there challenges with you know, other equity considerations, people with disabilities, aging populations, younger populations. These are all things that you can look at as part of the equity considerations. We did, again, look at quite a bit of that with the comprehensive safety action plan. But, you know, on that more even localized level, how does transit come into play? All of your transit users, and transit is one of the safest ways to travel, but most people are pedestrians or bicyclists getting to that transit, right? So we want to have some considerations around that with Vision Zero as well. Another thing that can be done is having community ambassadors to get to those areas as part of that outreach and engagement with all areas within your community to tell you how they get around, and not just having people, you know, who are from the city or who are, you know, transportation professionals telling the public about these challenges that are happening around, you know, every city, or what streets might have different challenges, but hearing from the community and having someone from within talk to them and promote the ideals of Vision Zero can really be a really strong way to get that in community engagement. So with that, moving on to the next slide, another huge aspect of Vision Zero is really about how do we manage speeds to safe levels. I think there are so many layers that affect speeds. I saw it over and over again in my city, but yes, we want to look at street design and design standards, and how we look at changing, you know, using infrastructure to approach safer speeds. And I say safer speeds, which usually does mean getting people not to drive 50 in a 35, but those safe speeds doesn't mean delay. And I think that's an important part of how we utilize, you know, the language when we talk to the public. I think a lot of people have fear that some of these infrastructure projects that we're going to do means they're going to be in gridlock, and that's not necessarily the case. It's about really looking at those street designs, but also looking at appropriate speed limits for the different types of streets and what we're trying to accomplish. Is that street intended to, you know, serve a lot of businesses and has a lot of vulnerable road users crossing the street, or is it a huge corridor that's pumping a lot of traffic through an area? So looking at appropriate speed limits, but I have found that enforcement does come into play. Without enforcement, people ignore speed limits. So all of these layers work together to have safe outcomes, and we do the parts we can, you know, when they are available. So infrastructure, when you can do them, the enforcement, when you can do them, all of that will come together to play an important part in affecting those safe speeds to get to zero. The next slide, we talk about developing an action plan, right? You want to have more specificity in what exactly you're going to do with it within each municipality, right? WAMPO can make certain recommendations, but truly it's going to be up to different municipalities to move forth some of these infrastructure improvements. You know, when to install crosswalks or use leading pedestrian intervals, safety improvements. You can make changes to what you require of your developers in an area to encourage safety, or even influencing laws. Perhaps new driver education requirements can come into play. All of these things with a safe system approach, whether it's, you know, affecting how people use streets, how we build streets. Again, we talked about speed a lot in the last slide, and even post-crash care. All of these aspects come into play when we look at the strategies that we're going to approach within an action plan. And then once you have all of your leadership and all the agencies coming together to agree on what strategies and where you're going to make changes, being transparent with your plan, how you're pursuing it, publishing it in a way that the public can see, you know, this is the plan, but then, you know, follow up with regular updates on progress as it happens. Next slide, again, talking about that safe system. Really, all of those layers come into play to incorporate redundancy towards a more forgiving system. So if one part fails, again, like somebody makes a mistake, we're fallible, we're not perfect as road users, you know, maybe the street design encouraged a slower speed. So if there was a crash, the outcome wasn't as severe. So again, this is sort of that safe systems approach, but all these layers providing a redundancy towards those safer outcomes. Next slide. We talk a lot with Vision Zero about the anatomy of a dangerous street, right? So these are streets that tend to have higher speed limits, lots of lanes, it's really wide. Maybe it accommodates traffic needs for a couple hours of the day, but at 9 o'clock at night, it feels like a freeway. People need to cross the street. There's maybe not a lot of safe stop controlled locations for pedestrians and other vulnerable road users to cross the street. Maybe there's not separated spaces for people to walk or ride their bike along the street. It's not hard to find these in each city. Just looking around, even in Google Street View, I could identify both from crash trends, but even just looking at cross sections on streets like Seneca Street or Rock Road, those types of roads with that, those have these types of characteristics and lend themselves to be your streets that are going to yield those more severe crashes. So we want to convert a street like this, which the one in the example is from Columbus. But if you go to the next slide, we want to transform that street to something with, you know, shorter distances between signals, slower traffic, more crosswalks, separated bike facilities, street lighting, other elements like medians to help calm traffic. And this rendering is actually from the city of Columbus won an implementation grant from Safe Streets for All because we already had that Vision Zero plan. We had corridors identified of where we wanted to, you know, make those changes. And this rendering shows you the transformation of that type of project and the type of projects that were awarded at least with the first Safe Streets for All implementation grant. So I just kind of wanted to give you some context with that. So the next slide is just talking about some of the resources that we are still working on to provide WAMPO with for cities that are interested in taking the step towards Vision Zero, a framework of what some pieces that are needed to put Vision Zero together for each city. We'll get you a sample presentation to help people get a sense of what it means to do Vision Zero, a sample resolution that your city council or your leadership can put forth, pledge that any user can put together to pledge their commitment to Vision Zero, handouts, different pieces to utilize towards getting Vision Zero started within each municipality. Also, the Vision Zero network has some great resources that you can just reference, as well as Federal Highway has a lot of proven safety countermeasures, part of some of the toolkits we're still working on for you to look at, you know, what does it mean to have leading pedestrian intervals or signal backplates. These are great sheets to utilize to help communicate that to residents or other areas of leadership. So I only had about 10 minutes or so to share, you know, this little brief introduction to Vision Zero with you. If you go to the next slide, I would say as part of that shift in mindset, this is one thing that everyone here in this meeting today can even just start trying to do as part of the language that you use is to replace the word traffic accident with crash. Again, the word accident kind of holds no accountability, and we know that these outcomes are preventable. So the free thing anyone can do starting today is to start shifting that mindset. So I encourage all of you to do that today. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. I've got the last slide. Any questions you might have for me?
Go ahead, Chad.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Quick comment. I apologize. I didn't share the context before. I'm sharing the context after the presentation. Slade and Stram from Transsystems, Kendra from Burgess and Neighbor BNN, and Maria from BNN. All three were working on the comprehensive safety action plan, and the development of the safety action plan that it is on the agenda. And the link to that plan is shared by staff as well. So this presentation is an addendum to that study, kind of a complement, like how do we develop a framework for helping cities and jurisdictions, a Vision Zero framework? That's what Maria has sharing today. So I think the team working with staff will reach out to Wichita and Derby. The goal was to develop a Vision Zero framework for City of Wichita and City of Derby, and that sets an example for various other cities. That is the goal. And then Maria has expertise in this before, and Maria just joined a few months ago. The study had been happening several months, like Slade and Kendra had been working on the project several months. Because Maria had expertise in Vision Zero and had experience with Safe Streets for All, winning the grant and seeing an example, that's how we invited Maria to share with TAC members about the next steps of how we develop a framework for Vision Zero. So is that any questions for all for Maria?
All right, thank you, Chad and Maria. Are there any other discussions?
Sorry, I had one quick question. Do you know throughout this process, is there evaluation of data, whether it's in a region or elsewhere, to show what's impactful? I mean, what she showed there is effectively what I think what a lot of us have been working on, is complete streets for some time, which makes sense. And we've seen here in Wichita that a lot of those things can help, but we don't always have the opportunity to double back and see what's working. Do you know throughout this process or anywhere else, is there data available that you're aware of that we could see what's effective, whether it's mid-mile crosswalks, whether it's on-street bike lanes, whether it's narrower lanes, those types of things, to see if things are trending down in those areas? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer a little bit of it. I know that, you know, each city is able to participate in agencies like NACTO, and that was a great resource to ask a lot of specific questions like that. So like New York had some data that they shared about which of their countermeasures were most effective, whether it was road diets were actually very effective for slowing speeds and reducing serious crashes. And so like they had some data that they were able to show like before and after. With Columbus, a lot of our strategies, because our program was quite new, we were seeing some of our corridor improvements to be most effective. So we had one corridor where we went from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. And what was the showstopper story there was that in just a few months of data, though, you know, we're still tracking it, but we could see that the number of cars going over 50 miles an hour in that 35-mile-an-hour corridor went from 1,000 a day to under 100. So a 90% reduction in cars doing those outrageous speeds, right? And the community was thrilled by it, and it didn't yield a delay, as sometimes people fear when you go reducing lanes, right? So that was one example. I know roundabouts are a proven safety countermeasure that show what some of those reductions are. Again, that resource that I mentioned, if you go back maybe one slide with FHWA has, or 2 slides, has some of those proven safety countermeasures, and it'll show you percentage reductions that typically can trend from their implementation. So I don't know if it's totally a crash reduction factor, but it gives you a sense of some of that. So there's different ways to get the answers to, I think, some of the questions you're asking. Did that help a little bit?
It did help. Thank you. We've, for a variety of reasons, it has made sense in the Wichita area to look at reducing lanes. Nobody likes to hear the term road diet, it seems, so we stay away from that. But
lane reallocation is another way to say it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's worked tremendously for us. We've seen it. There's a lot of people in the community that think it's just something trendy that we're doing, I'm interested in finding information from other areas, how impactful it is. So that helps. The only other deal was crash data, because we try to work with Wichita Police Department on this too. I don't know how many times anymore, just even in the last week that I had people passing me, flying around. They weren't even looking at the road. They were looking straight down at their phone while they were passing. And so I wondered, I mean, there's only so much we can do about inattentive driving, but I know that's got to be a part of it too.
Thank you, Gary. We'll work on putting together a follow-up to your advice, Gary, and the November TAC meeting.
All right, thank you again. Any further questions? If not, thank you. We'll move on to item 6, committee and partnership updates. We have none. And number 7, other business. Any other business? And number 8, adjournment. Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, or this morning's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right. Have a great day. Thank you.